You ran the same coding job through Kimi K3 and Claude Sonnet 5, and one of them stopped halfway through and handed you a half-built mess. The question is which one actually finishes. Kimi K3 is the budget giant with open weights, Claude Sonnet 5 is the reliable finisher, and Gemini 3.5 Pro is the multimodal all-rounder, and you need to pick one for production. Test 1, cost per million tokens. The number that'll hit you first is Kimi K3 at 0 per million input tokens versus Claude Sonnet 5 at 3 zeros. That's not a rounding difference. Push 100 million input tokens a month through a coding agent, and that gap shows up on your bill before you know it. I pulled the official pricing pages for all three. Kimi K3 is 0.60 per million input tokens. Claude Sonnet 5 is 3.0. Gemini 3.5 Pro sits in the middle at 2.50. Now, all three charge the exact same $15 per million output tokens, so the output side is a dead heat. The input gap is where Kimi K3 pulls ahead, and that's where most agent costs actually live. Output tokens are the same price for all three, so if your workload is output heavy, the input advantage shrinks fast. On top of that, users are reporting that Kimi K3 burns more output tokens than Claude Sonnet 5 on the same tasks, which can eat into those input savings. The real-world gap is smaller than the headline number suggests, but on input, Kimi K3 is still the clear winner. Kimi K3 takes round 1 on input cost, 5 times cheaper than Claude Sonnet 5 on cache miss input, straight from official pricing pages, not community estimates. That puts Kimi K3 up 1-0, and if you need to keep your input bill down, that lead matters right now. I know that pricing trap because I've been inside these APIs long enough to watch a bill double overnight when output tokens spike. Drop a comment if your token costs have ever surprised you. Test 2, Coding Benchmark, SWE Bench Verified. A coding agent that scores 71% on SWE Bench versus one that scores 77% sounds like a small gap, but in production, that difference is the agent that fixes the bug versus the one that generates a patch, breaking 3 other things and costs you an extra hour of debugging. So I went through the numbers carefully. Claude Sonnet 5 hits 77.2% on SWE Bench Verified. That's a vendor official figure. Kimi K3 comes in at 71.3% and Gemini 3.5 Pro at 74.5%. But both of those are community reported via Bench LM, so treat them as directional rather than apples to apples. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Even directionally, Claude Sonnet 5 is ahead by roughly 3 to 6 points, and users back that up by saying it actually finishes tasks. Claude Sonnet 5 takes round 2 on Coding Benchmark, with the highest verified score and a reputation for actually completing tasks rather than stalling out. I didn't expect the gap to be this consistent across both the benchmark and user reports, but it is, and that ties the score at 1 apiece, with Gemini 3.5 Pro still on 0. Test 3, output speed in tokens per second. 92 tokens per second versus 78. That's the gap we're looking at here. In an agentic loop running hundreds of calls, slower output means your whole pipeline stalls and your user is staring at a spinner longer than they should be. I had to run through this twice to make sure I was reading it right. Kimi K3 clocks in at 92 tokens per second on community reported data from artificial analysis. Gemini 3.5 Pro sits at 85, and Claude Sonnet 5 is the slowest of the three, at 78. That's the vendor official figure. Different measurement setups, so treat it as directional. But Kimi K3 is about 18% faster than Claude Sonnet 5 on output, and that adds up in a real agent loop. Kimi K3 takes round 3 on speed, fastest output at 92 tokens per second, directionally ahead of both Gemini 3.5 Pro and Claude Sonnet 5. That moves Kimi K3 to 2 wins, Claude Sonnet 5 holds 1, and Gemini 3.5 Pro is still looking for its first. Alright, so Kimi K3 is cheaper on input and faster on output, but we still haven't looked at context window and deployment modality, and those two tests could completely change which model actually fits your specific workflow. Context especially, because if your code base is huge, the model that can't hold it all in one shot is the model that breaks your pipeline. Test 4. Context window and max output limits. 1 million tokens versus 200,000. That's the gap between Kimi K3 and Claude Sonnet 5 on context. Feed a large codebase into an agent capped at 200K, and it starts truncating your files, losing context mid-task, and generating code that doesn't match the rest of your project. I went through the official model cards for all three. Kimi K3 and Gemini 3.5 Pro both hit 1 million tokens of context, while Claude Sonnet 5 caps at 200K, 5 times smaller. But flip it around on max output, and Claude Sonnet 5 wins hard. 64K tokens out versus Gemini's 32K and Kimi K3's 16K, which means Claude Sonnet 5 can generate 4 times more code in a single call than Kimi K3 can. Context in and context out are two different things, and this benchmark splits them, which is why it's genuinely hard to call. If you're feeding massive codebases in, Kimi K3 and Gemini 3.5 Pro win on context window. If you need the model to generate long, uninterrupted output in one shot, Claude Sonnet 5's 64K max output is the one you want. And for most agentic coding tasks, output length matters more than you'd think. Context and output split the advantage so cleanly that this round is a tie. Kimi K3 and Gemini 3.5 Pro lead on context in. Claude Sonnet 5 leads on context out. Score stays at Kimi K3 2, Claude Sonnet 5 1, Gemini 3.5 Pro 0, with 1 tied. Test 5. Deployment and modality. You're building a tool that needs to process audio recordings or video clips alongside code, and you pick the wrong model. Suddenly, you're rewriting your whole ingestion pipeline because the model you chose is text only and can't touch your audio files at all. Watch what happens when you line up the modality support. Gemini 3.5 Pro takes text, image, audio, and video input, the most complete set of any of these three. Claude Sonnet 5 handles text and image, and it adds Claude Code integration for agentic workflows, which is a real production advantage. Kimi K3 is text-only right now, but it's the only one with open weights released July 27th, so you can self-host and fine-tune it. Gemini 3.5 Pro takes round 5 on modality, the only model here that can handle audio and video input, and that's an official capability, not a community estimate. Final score, Kimi K3 2, Claude Sonnet 5 1, Gemini 3.5 Pro 1 with 1 tie, and Gemini finally gets on the board. So where does Kimi K3 clearly win? Input cost, full stop. At 5 times cheaper per million input tokens than Claude Sonnet 5, it's also the fastest at 92 tokens per second. It ties for the biggest context window at 1 million tokens, and it's the only open weight model in this group, so you can self-host it and fine-tune it on your own data. Claude Sonnet 5 wins on the thing that actually matters in production. It finishes the job. Highest SWE bench verified score at 77.2%, the largest max output at 64K tokens per call, and users consistently report it completes tasks instead of stopping halfway. It also has Claude Code integration built in, which is a real edge for agentic coding workflows. Gemini 3.5 Pro wins on modality. It's the only model here that accepts audio and video input, alongside text and images. And it pairs that with a 1 million token context window. If your workflow involves processing multimedia files as part of a coding or automation pipeline, Gemini 3.5 Pro is the only one of these three that can actually do it natively. If you need reliable task completion and the highest coding benchmark score, Claude Sonnet 5 is your pick. If input costs is your constraint and you can live with text-only input, Kimi K3's 5 times cheaper input pricing is the number that wins. Gemini 3.5 Pro is the one to grab if audio or video input is non-negotiable, but it doesn't lead on anything else. The one thing that'll bite you if you don't know it, Kimi K3's output token price is $15 per million, identical to Claude Sonnet 5, and users are reporting it burns more output tokens on the same prompts. So that 5x input cost advantage can disappear completely depending on how output heavy your actual workload is. And it's worth running your own numbers before you commit to it. If you're trying to figure out where Kimi K3 stacks up against a more expensive frontier model, I compared it head-to-head in Kimi K3 versus Claude Opus 5 versus Grok 4.5, which is actually better. And the results there are pretty interesting given what we just saw on cost.